Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon, and I will be your MC for this May edition of Do Tell Story Swap. And we have a wonderful roster of storytellers already signed up, more than we usually do at the beginning of the show. I do want to hand things over to Katie Mangan briefly for a very important announcement.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Our co-founder, Elaine Stanley, died peacefully in the morning of May the 1st. And we are going to dedicate our June swap to celebrating her. And we're hoping that, we can talk about her or have a story about her and bring memories. And we will be sending an email to explain more about the June swap. But it's a sad, sad time. It was Kenneth Foster and Elaine who started the swap in 2011, 10. 10. Okay. Yes. So we'll keep Elaine and her family in our thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Elaine was the one who brought me into the Do Tell swap around 2016, I think, or 2015. And she was always a mentor figure to me as well. So I'm looking forward to the swap dedicated to her, as I'm sure that a lot of us are. So our stories are told, not read, and they are generally 5 to 7 minutes long. And of course, you just let Katie know that you're interested in telling a story. You can still do that via the chat, and she will put you in our sign up. If you have a story that's a little bit longer, say 10 to 15 minutes, just let Katie know in advance, and then we tend to stack those stories nearer the end of the swap. And yeah, just let Katie know it's a little bit longer. So without any further ado, I think I'm going to introduce our first teller of the evening, and it is one of the leaders of this swap, Meg Brown.
Hello, everybody. This is something that I got from my father. My father was raised in Arizona. I mean, he was born and raised there and identified very much with the life that a lot of Arizonians lived. He loved horses, he loved cowboys, and all of that came with it. In fact, even though he spent 5 years back east in New York State when he married my mother, they came to Arizona, and I'll never forget, they had driven all night and they come into Arizona. And it was an amazing experience to wake up in the back of the car and look out and see that enormous, infinite blue sky and the just the openness that the desert was with the volcanic spires rising off into the distance and all the big mountains. It really influenced me. He said that was where God lived, and I certainly did believe that. Well, we would go up on the mountain when I was a kid with my family, and we would camp in the coolness of those tall, tall mountains and those wonderful forests. And at night, we would sit around the campfire and we would tell stories. My father always read from a book called Sun and Saddle Leather. Now, that book was written around 1915 by a poet whose name is Badger Clark. And this was the favorite story of all of us kids, and I think of my father too. And I'm going to tell that to you today. It's called The Glory Trail. Way high up the Mogollons, among the mountain tops, a lion cleaned up yearling's bones and licked his thankful chops. And who should come along a tripping down the slope but High Chin Bob with sinful pride and maverick hungry rope. Oh, glory be to me, says he, and fame's unfading flower. All meddlin' hands are far away. I ride my good top hoss today, and I'm top rope of the lazy J. Hello, kitty cat, you're ours. That lion licked his paws so brown and dreamed sweet dreams of veal. And then that circlin' rope came round and it grabbed him by his meal. He screamed pure fury to the world, and all the hills yelled back. That good hoss took a step behind, and Bob took up the slack. Oh, glory be to me, crows he. We've hit the glory trail. No human man, as I have read, has looped a raging lion's head, nor any hoss has dragged one dead till we have told the tale. Way up on the Muggyons, that top hoss did his best through whipping brush and rattling rock from valley floor to crest. But ever when Bob turned and hoped a limp remains to find, a red-eyed lion, belly roped, but healthy, loped behind. Oh, glory be to me, grunts he, this glory trail is tough. But ever till the judgment morn, I'll keep this dally round my horn, for never any hero born was known to holler "nuff." Three sons had rode their circle home above the canyon rim and turned their star herds loose to roam the ranges high and dim. Yet up and down and round and cross Bob pounded weak and wan, for pride still glued him to his hoss and glory drove him on. Oh, glory be to me, sighs he. He can't be drugged to death. And now I know without a doubt those heroes I have read about were only fools who stuck it out until their dying breath. Way up on the Muggione, a prospect man did swear that moon dreams melted down his bones and lifted up his hair. A ribby cow horse thundered by, a lion followed behind. A man, gaunt but chin on high, yelled out this crazy song. Oh, glory be to me, says he, and to my noble noose. Strangers tell my pards below I took a raging dream in tow, and now I'll never let him go. I'll never let him loose. And that's the story of Bob in the Mogollons.
Wow, that had great language in it. And I love like an echo is the hills yelling back, just the way things are phrased and the names, I mean, from the author Badger Clark, but
Yeah.
high-chinned Bob.
With
That's
sinful pride.
yeah.
I
I
always
guess
thought that
that's
was
another
really
way. I
funny.
guess Bob must have been tall. Uh,
Who knows? But you know what it reminds me of is the stories of people getting lost in that wilderness and then, their ghost haunting someone, and it was
yeah.
just, we just thought that was so much fun.
Oh yeah, and to be around a campfire and listen to that.
Yeah,
Along comes low-butted Sam.
great
Anyway,
times.
wonderful rendition too. I am always afraid to try one of those because rhymes for me add so much pressure. People know when you make a mistake. Thank you,
Yeah,
Meg.
it's hard. It's harder. It's hard in some ways and easier in others. At least you know what to say. but
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun. And I remember now seeing Elaine had the face on the barroom floor that she could recite. That was
Yeah.
always a lot of fun too.
My mother always recited Sam McGee from Tennessee. Yeah. Thank you. That was absolutely wonderful.
Welcome. Thank you.
All right. And Chester, I believe you are next on our sign up sheet. So please welcome to our virtual stage, May edition, Chester Weems from Oklahoma.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me now? Okay. I hope I pushed the right buttons. I have a new computer and I need a hammer to whack it occasionally to get this thing to work. But uh, but it's kind of getting there. I uh, I kind of do family stories, other people's families, my family. Sometimes people give me stories and other things too. Whenever I can steal something, but uh, but I have a category that I call funeral stories. And over the years, I've discovered when you go to funerals, there are a number of things that happen. You ever notice when you go to a funeral, there's people there that you didn't know that they knew the same person you knew? Isn't that kind of interesting? And anyway, funerals are kind of interesting places, and you always find out things about people you did not know. You did not know that they did that, and you thought you knew them, but you didn't all along anyway. Well, in February, my wife's cousin passed away. He was a wonderful man. He was in the family known as one of the Stillwater wards because when the family migrated to Oklahoma back in the early before statehood days, part of them settled out in western Oklahoma, out in Major County and Dewey County, and some moved to Stillwater, where they became pretty successful business people. They had a large Chevrolet car dealership, and that's where her cousin grew up. His name was Gale, and he died in February, 3 months short of his 100th birthday. His goal was to make 100. But he had a great grandkid came along. He said he's going to count the great grandkid. He was about 3 months old at that time. He said, I'm going to count the add us up together. We got 100 that way. His name was Gale. We go to his funeral a couple of weeks after he passed away up in Stillwater. And in February, we had a really bad cold spell here. I mean, it was cold and it was windy and it was just it was about 20 degrees that day we had the funeral. So we go to the services, nice services. People talk about how wonderful man he was. A lot of family there. Even though he grew up in a car dealership, he liked to work with his hands, and he also was a carpenter. He made things. In fact, behind his coffin at the church sat a large cross that he had made and donated to the church. And somehow that seemed real fitting. But at services like that, at some point, people get up and they say a few things about the person that passed away. You share a few memories. And everyone joked about Gale, his love for Chevrolet. He had grown up in that dealership and he did not recognize any other brand of automobile of any kind. They just were terrible. At the age of 95, the family kind of convinced him, though, that he needed to get a new car. His wife was still driving. He had given up driving at that time. But they convinced him to get him a new car. And they finally got him to decide to do it. He said, okay, only two requirements. You have to buy it in Stillwater, and it has to be a Chevrolet. So they got that done. So anyway, a few years later, he passes away. We go to the service. We drive outside of town to a rural cemetery. It was probably 10, 12 miles outside of the city limits. Hilly, on the top of a hill, not a tree in sight, just a blowing cold wind. There were a couple, because he was a World War II guy, there were a couple of military guys there, blowing the bugle, playing taps for him and so on. And they had a little blue tent where everybody huddled because they were so darn cold. They got into there with the blankets and all the coats, and everybody's getting ready, and they need to get Gale out of the hearse and bring him over for the burial part, and they can't get him out of the hearse. The hearse has either frozen shut, or the battery has gone out on the key fob, which, by the way, you need to change your batteries, your key fob occasionally. They spent, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes trying to break in that hearse. Now, Gail didn't care. He was in there in the hearse. I mean, he was comfortable. The rest of the family, though, I mean, his wife out there, she was one of those huddled with a blanket, and all the rest, and the wind was blowing, and the poor bugle guys. I felt so sorry for the guy when he finally got around to blow the bugle. I don't know how his lips did it, just didn't break on the spot. But they finally decided we need to go ahead and have the service. And someone said, well, Gail would say this is kind of silly anyway. You guys just need to go ahead and say the prayers and do the service and go to the house where it's warm. And his son spoke up and said, no, what Dad would have said, they wouldn't have had this problem if they'd bought a Chevy. So anyway, true story. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's wonderful.
That was great. I wonder the batteries go out a lot faster, like you said, in cold weather.
Yeah, they do.
They don't work as well, but I like to think that it was a problem with the Hearst. I don't know who makes Hearst. Maybe that's its own company or Bentley or something. I don't know. Vicky says she was a Chevy family too. So mine always was too. There's Ford and Chevy, Coke and Pepsi, right? All right. Well, that was wonderful, Chester. All right. Well, we're off to a great start, and our list is continuing to grow. We now have one of the founders of the swap. And Ken, you're zooming from Utah, is that right?
Yes, little town called Ephraim, Utah. It's Ephraim, and a lot of people pronounce it differently, but it's Ephraim. That's how they say it out here. And I have to tell you, Chester, my dad was a Ford guy all the way through. We never had a Chevrolet in the driveway. I'll tell you that. Oh boy. Thank you for that story. That was good. People who grew up around Santa Rosa, California know who Luther Burbank was or is, I guess. I don't know. Because they're in heaven, do we say is or was? I don't know. Anyway, Luther Burbank was, I knew the word, but I lost it. A gardener, I can't even say the word now. Horticulturalist.
Horticulturalist.
Thank you. He lived from about 1830 something up to early 1900s. And you can look up the dates if you want. I didn't look up the dates. But Luther Burbank has been attributed to making the Shasta daisy, improving fruit crops, vegetable crops, spineless cactuses that cows could eat, especially out in arid places, Arizona. And Luther did a lot of experimenting with plants and crossbreeding. And one of the things that he is attributed to was grafting. And one of the most popular things that he grafted were walnut trees. English walnuts are the choice fruit of the walnut. You don't, I guess you could eat a black walnut, but it doesn't taste that good and they're hard to crack open. And your hands turn black when you try and crack open black walnuts. so English walnuts are the choice to go to. But the English walnut tree itself is a brittle tree. When the branches get big enough for kids to climb on, you have to be careful because the branches will break suddenly. And they didn't produce a lot of nuts. And Luther Burbank found out that if you grafted an English walnut onto a black walnut rootstock, the tree actually became stronger and it became more abundant. The black walnut rootstock is very strong and it sinks deep into the earth. So when you go through a walnut orchard, you'll see that graft line. Usually it's anywhere from 6 inches to 18 inches above ground. And almost every walnut orchard that I know of uses Luther Burbank's method of grafting these trees. Now, in about 1877, Luther Burbank had an experimental garden in Santa Rosa before he moved out. Towns I lost my mind. What's the town out there where his garden is now? Big experimental garden. Sebastopol. Thank you. Senior moments, they've robbed my brain sometimes. So before he moved his gardens out to Sebastopol, where he had over 30 acres out there, he planted gardens in an area which is now called the College District of Santa Rosa. All those historic homes, all of that was originally Luther Burbank's garden. And he had flowers and all kinds of things. And of course, he planted lots of walnut trees. And as you drive through that neighborhood, there are still walnut trees in different yards. And you can see where these homes were built around these walnut trees. And of course, my wife had one of those homes. The home was built in 1906. And from what research we did on that, the tree was 20 to 25 years old when the house was built. So that means that tree was planted somewhere around 1880s. And from people we had talked to that had been there, when they started putting houses in, they left 3 rows of trees in between the houses. Well, as it became more and more popular, they took out the center road and made a road where that center tree was. And so, like on the street where we lived, we had a Luther Burbank walnut tree in our yard, and across the street, the neighbor had a Luther Burbank walnut tree in their yard. And as you went down that road, Nason and many of the other roads that were there, you could see the walnut trees. And when you think about the age of the tree, we know that one of the mayors of Santa Rosa lived in our home. And he was the mayor when Alfred Hitchcock made his movies in Santa Rosa and stayed in that home. When he was making The Birds out of Bodega Bay, he came back to Santa Rosa and spent the night in that home. And you think about this tree, it grew, was there People parked their bicycles under this tree. Children played under this tree and in this tree. And as it got more and more popular, roads happened and cars would park under the tree. And of course, nothing stopped the tree from producing nuts every late summer into the fall and into the winter. And my wife and her two daughters would gather up these nuts in the fall, and they would shell them. Well, they'd husk them. You got to take the husk off first. Then you would shell them. Then you would roast them. And then they would put them in half-pound bags and sell them. And that's how the girls got their Christmas money and did it. I know one of Patricia's daughters used that walnut tree to escape out of her bedroom window, which was upstairs. She slid down the roof and jumped into the tree and would be off with her friends, and her mom thought she was in her bedroom. So that tree over the years has seen lots of things, lots of changes, more bicycles, less cars, flowers, houses changing, everything going on. Well, when we decided to move in the December of 2015, well, I should say that tree saw all of you storytellers coming by that house to go into the storytelling studio, which was the garage. But that tree saw lots of things. Well, in December of 2015, the moving van driver would not listen to my directions. He was a little high-chinned, I guess. And he decided he'd do what he wanted to do, and he backed right into that tree and broke it. And the new owners of the house, I called them, and they said they were going to cut it down anyway, which broke my heart. But the graft of that particular walnut tree was 18 inches off the ground. And I asked the new owners of the house if I could have the 2 logs that contained the graft of that tree, and they agreed. So that log was carried with us up to Washington State. I waxed it to keep it from cracking as it dried. Then I rough turned it into a bowl that had very thick walls. Usually when you rough turn a bowl to help it dry, the wall thickness is 10% of the diameter. In this case, the walls were 1 inch thick. And there were 4 bowls. 1 bowl was finished and given to Patricia's daughters. 1 bowl was given to a friend. And the other 2 bowls sat in my wood shop in Washington State. They traveled to Chattanooga. They came back. And this last week, I found them covered with dust and all kinds of other things. And I decided it was time that these bowls come to life. Now, the inner thing about bowls from a tree is that even though that tree grew on its own roots for 135 years, it continues to live now as 2 bowls. These 2 bowls we call twin bowls. So if you imagine the center of the tree was between the 2 bowls, and I cut the center out, that's called the pith. And if you don't cut it out, it will crack and ruin the wood. But here are the 2 walnut bowls. You can sort of see them. And I've decided I am not going to sell these bowls. They're going to be kept. The bigger one, it's just barely bigger. It's 9 3/4 inches in diameter. I don't know if you can see that. It's just barely quick. 4 inches deep. The other bowl is just a little smaller, closer to 9.5. The smaller bowl is called Ruby, and the larger bowl is called Otto. And these twins will sit on my dining room table until they put me in the hearse, and it better be a Ford. But anyway, that's the story of these bowls. Black walnut from Luther Burbank, and the tree continues to live through the bowls.
I learned so much in that story.
Yeah.
My
Well,
God,
a lot of that stuff, information.
that
Yeah.
was, I enjoyed every part of that story. And just, it makes me think, does Ephraim, does
Yeah.
Ephraim have a local history like that?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
The early pioneers, although they don't have trees that were natural, when the pioneers came here in the 1850s, there were what they call scrub cedar, but it's really juniper. And that's all, and they grow probably 4 feet tall. And even after 100 years, their trunk's only this big.
Oh,
That's the natural tree. But when the pioneers came, they planted elm, box elder, poplar, those kind of trees.
now,
And
Kenneth, when Patricia was sneaking down the tree, are you
it
sure?
was Patricia's daughter.
Oh, I thought she was going to see you. Okay,
No, it was her daughter. Yeah, she was on a curfew and she was sneaking out.
got it. Okay. Wow. Well, thank you for that.
You're
I
welcome.
learned quite a bit. That was fantastic. All right, we are moving right along. And next up, we have our beloved Vicky. And let me just find her. Welcome to the Do Tell virtual stage, Vicky Ness.
Hello. And I loved your story, Kenneth. And there's going to be an echo in my story that relates to yours. So listen in. When Grandma was happy, she loved to smoke. Yes, she did, but Mama and Daddy, they didn't like her smoking in the house. So she went out onto the porch and sat in the wicker chair right in the front there. Happily, she smoked. Now, everybody who went by stared at her, and some people just stopped and looked at her strange. Because you see, Grandma didn't smoke cigarettes. She smoked. Smoke poured out of the neck of her sweater. It bradled up out of her ears. It wafted up out of her gray hair, oh, undulating in a sensuous dance until she was wreathed in happy smoke, which then rose up and dissipated. And Mama and Daddy were not pleased because the neighbors were looking at them like the whole family was strange. So they made Grandma come back inside. She could sit in the living room by the open window there, so they opened up a window for her. So she sat herself down, put her elbow up on a warm, sunny windowsill and looked out the window, and it was a beautiful day. The sun was just about ready to set, and it was autumn. The chill of an autumn night was just taking over the cobalt sky, ready to descend with the sun. But for now, summer had not left. and the pine needles and the leaf mulch were fragrant, and the warmth lit up the windowsill, and the slanting sun caused all the dust motes to dance, and the leaves to shimmer in gold. It was a beautiful late afternoon in fall. And then she looked into the living room, and there was Mama and Daddy, and they were sitting in their Barca loungers, reamed with dancing blue and white frozen light, yeah, coming from the TV news on the 5 o'clock there, and the rest of the room was dark, and their faces were frozen in a sort of stunned horror, or watching all the disasters parading across the TV endlessly, endlessly. And then suddenly, down the steps, clumping down the steps, here came Althea, Grandma's favorite granddaughter. She with the big, clumpy combat boots and the ripped up stockings and the miniest of mini skirts and an old leather jacket that was huge she found in a secondhand store. She had painted too hot to handle across the back, and her hair was fire engine red, and she was heading toward the front door. When Mama turned right around and looked at her and said, "Where do you think you're going? That skirt is an invitation to mayhem. Now you go change that skirt. Put on some pants, young lady." Well, Althea thought. She moved her mouth a little bit of some comment to make, but she didn't. She turned around and went right back upstairs. Grandma looked at Mama, her daughter, and wondered if she could remember the strange, weird clothes that she wore when she was Althea's age. But no matter, no need to start a fight. She put her elbow back up on the warm windowsill and looked out at the inviting warmth of the day. And then she heard noise on the roof, and presently the oak tree outside the window shimmied and shook. And here came Althea climbing down in that wacky outfit she had on, and their eyes met. And Grandma was the first to smile. And then Althea smiled. And down the tree she went, and scampering off across the yard to her friends who were waiting on the sidewalk. Grandma waved, and off they went. And oh, the sunlight and the warmth came in the window, and then she looked again, and there was Mama and Daddy. They had pushed their barcalungers back to watch ever more of the news in the dark, cold, cave chill, dark room. Both of them immobile, wall-eyed like two frozen fish. And Grandma thought she had something better to do with her time. So she got up and she shuffled down through the kitchen out the back door and set up her aluminum lawn chair there, the one she really loved. And she faced the setting sun and got the very last golden rays and the warmth. And she just breathed in being here, being now, and this beautiful day. And she leaned back and smiled and sighed. And then Grandma couldn't help herself. She had a little bit of a smoke.
Well, I see the theme. That was wonderful. Oh, what a beautiful end. I love when grandparents conspire with their grandchildren against
Mhm.
the parents. Oh, Vicky, as usual, your descriptive colors compete with your facial expressions, and I don't know, the image of the fish-eyed parents in the cave chill. That was that was wonderful.
I think most of us have been all three generations. And, somehow in middle age, we forget you're supposed to get out there and enjoy and live.
Yeah.
We get so busy. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, anyway.
We forget you can always take the tree. Take the tree down from wherever you are
Yep. And take off at a run.
and sprint.
Yeah.
Thank you. that had a lot to do with heading into summer, I feel too. It was nice. Wonderful. And we have another one of our core members who's going to tell a story. Let's welcome Sharon to our virtual stage.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
You're a little bit low in volume. If you can turn your volume up, that would help.
I have to get so close. I can't seem to get that to work better. All
Now you
right.
sound good.
Oh, good. Okay. A few years ago, I worked every Sunday afternoon as a substitute interpreter at Queen of the Valley Hospital in Napa. And one sunny afternoon, as I sat in the office, I got a call from the nurse on the fourth floor nursing station. She said there was an old gentleman up there who wished to have the Bible read to him in Spanish. So I grabbed the Biblia Sagrada and headed for the elevator. When I got to the fourth floor, I found Melquiades Escobar, a little man in a big hospital bed. And he was growing smaller. He was losing parts of his body due to complications from diabetes. And the reason he was in the hospital right now was because he was having toes removed as part of that process. But he didn't want to talk about that. He wanted to talk about King David, not the David that killed Goliath, not the David that got in trouble with Bathsheba. He wanted David at the time in his life when he played the harp to soothe King Saul when madness came upon him. And so I began reading that story, and I didn't get very far before he interrupted me, and he said, "Did I ever tell you about my friend Gerardo?" And I said, no, this is the first time we've spoken. And he said, well, Gerardo, he was a great one. He played the guitarrón, that big guitar that makes the booming sound. And I played the guitar and sometimes the trumpet. And we formed the first mariachi band in Napa Valley. And we had those black pants with silver down the legs and the big sombreros embroidered and roses. And it was so much fun. We had such a wonderful time. We played for quinceañeras and weddings and parties and as he spoke, his eyes began to close and he was still smiling when his breathing slowed and he fell off to sleep and I tiptoed from the room. Well, it was several weeks later when I got another call on a Sunday afternoon. And a nurse said, we have an elderly gentleman up here who wants to have the Bible read to him in Spanish. And I know who that is. So I grabbed the Bible and up the stairs I went. Or no, I went in the elevator. I didn't go upstairs. And once again, I found Melquiades. And he wanted to hear about King David. He didn't want to hear about killing Goliath. He didn't want to hear about anything else in his life. He wanted to hear about the wise woman Abigail that David had taken as a wife. And so I found that story and began to read. But I didn't get very far before he interrupted me again. And he said, did I ever tell you about my second wife, Elena? And I said, no, you did not. And he said, oh, she was a great one. Elena was a great one to cook. She could make anything. A little cebolla, a little ajo, perhaps some cilantro, and everything was delicious. Ah, she was wonderful. And as he said that, his eyes began to close and he began to drift, still smiling as he went to sleep. And so once again, I left the room and I never saw Melquiades again, but I have thought of him from time to time because now I am getting old and most of my tomorrows have turned into yesterdays. And I am often tired and I drift off. And sometimes as I'm drifting, I think of wonderful experiences I have had. And I think of people that I would call great. Some of them are on this very Zoom meeting. And it's very comforting to do that when you're falling asleep. And so if you have any nighttime insomnia, I recommend Melquiades method to you. It'll get you through anything. Thank you.
Oh, Sharon, that really touched me. I love how you brought it to yourself too. I thought that was wonderful. Yeah, the Bible stories certainly do inspire one to think of about one's own life and their stories. And I just want to say that if I were to do that, I would certainly think of you, Sharon. Okay, we have time for, I think, at least one more story. So, Laura, you are next on my list. And there you are. Please welcome Laura to the Do Tell virtual stage. Laura.
Hello. Um, I was gonna practice a story that I'm gonna tell next week in one of my granddaughter's classes because I'm gonna tell a few stories, but I changed my mind and I'm gonna sing a song that I wrote in the 70s that I think is actually a story, even though it's like a future focused song. And you can let me know if you think it is a story. In San Francisco, I'll wear a beret, sip cappuccino inside a cafe all day. I'm gonna be an artist by the bay. I'll take a book and a banjo to play. To all the people I meet on the way, I will say, I'm gonna be an artist by the bay. I'll have a sunny room with plants in every window. There'll be no place for gloom. Bye bye, bye bye, baby. So by the water is where I will stay. Singing for quarters, I'll earn my own way every day. I'm gonna be an artist by the bay. I'm gonna be an artist by the bay, bay, by the bay. That's it.
Now, did I get this? Did you write that?
I did.
Wow, that could be our next San Francisco song. That is amazing.
Oh, thank you.
And are you thinking of performing that for students? Is that right?
No, no, I changed
No.
my mind. I was gonna
Okay.
practice a story, but
You could perform that for students too. I think they would enjoy it.
Maybe so, maybe so.
Sounds like the perfect song to play at the Giants Stadium. What is that? Oracle Stadium for the seventh inning stretch. Oh, thank you, Laura. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, I think we can certainly fit in one more story before our break. And I happen to know that we have somebody from India, Renu, who has a story to share all the way from tomorrow in India. Let's welcome Renu to our virtual stage.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, this is another story I've written myself, and I hope you like it. Sushma was sitting in the veranda of her house, holding a fragrant, steaming, hot cup of coffee. As she sat there looking at the garden that she had planted over the years, the flowers were so beautiful. And as the breeze blew from the west side of the house, the fragrance of the jasmine that she had planted, which had grown on the side of the wall, wafted towards her. Every time she breathed in deep so that she could feel the fragrance of the flowers. And she could hear the chirping of the birds, the different birds that came to have a bath in the bird bath she had put into the garden. And as she sat there, she could hear a very loud argument coming from inside the house. Oh no, they're at it again. Hammer and tongs, hammer and tongs. Since the time they've come home, it's nothing but arguments. How could two people in love fight so much? And that too over business? How could she resolve it? But she refused to interfere. She didn't like to go in and interrupt them. Let them sort it out, she thought. But it hurt her to hear them hurling insults at each other. And all because of business? Her family owned a jewelry business. And both husband and wife, her son and daughter-in-law, ran it together. But they never could see eye to eye where business was concerned. Purnima would say, but my idea is better. And Arun would shout her down and say, no, mine is better, and we're not going to go with your decision. He was as big-headed, as stubborn as her husband had been. She remembered the same argument she had with her. Till finally, her father-in-law had stepped in and given them the perfect solution. Maybe she could use that with these two too. Her mind went back to the time when her husband and her older son had lost their lives in a tragic accident. There she was, still in her mid-30s, with a very young son to deal with, a business to run, and a young son to bring up. And as Arun grew up, he had hurled insults at her. You don't care for me. You only care about the business. You don't even listen to me. You don't understand what's happening in school. But where was the time? She was the sole breadwinner now, and she really had to take care of the business. Otherwise, there were vultures hanging around to grab it away from her. How could she have managed? But how could she explain all this to a teenager? And as the years went by, the relationship between them had gone from bad to worse. And finally, he had moved away to the US to do an MBA. And she hadn't heard from him for a long time. But life continued. The business had grown and she was happy. Then one day, Arun had come back with his wife, Purnima. She liked Purnima on sight. Such a bubbly, vivacious, friendly, thoughtful, kind child. She had hugged Sushma on sight. Ma, I'm so happy to be home, she had said. And Sushma was really, really happy that her son had found a beautiful girl. Not just by looks, but at heart. And so she had handed over the business to them. And there they were, from day one, fighting. The condition had always been that the daughter-in-law should be involved in the business. This had happened from her husband's grandfather to his father when he had passed on the business to them. He had said, you know, women should be involved in business. Jewelry is something that they have an innate interest and their instincts are very good. And so Sushma and her husband had handled the business together, but they had fought a lot too, till her father-in-law had stepped in. I should go inside and look for it, she thought. So finishing the last part of her coffee, she walked in. They were continuing to fight. She walked into the puja room. She tried to remember, where did I keep it? Where did I? Then she closed her eyes, focusing on her favorite deity. Please, goddess, please help me to find it. And when she opened her eyes, she saw on the top shelf that little box. She reached for it, picked it up, and with a smile, she went into the room where her son and daughter-in-law were. Arun, Purnima, can you please give me 5 minutes of your time? What is it, Ma? Don't interfere with us. Yes, Ma, said Purnima. Arun, can you please sit down? Give me just 2 minutes, not 5 minutes, just 2 minutes of your time, please. So finally, he sat down, and so did Purnima. Can you see this box? She said. Inside this, there's a coin. And the coin from now on will make all the decisions. Both of you are equally responsible for the business. And I have noticed that Purnima does have very good decisions. And you too, Arun. But you really need to take a break from all this fighting. This coin will make up your minds for you. And I'm going to be the one handling the coin. It's not going to come into your hands. So every time you are having a conversation around a business decision, you will come and share it with me in the evening. And then we will flip the coin. I will flip it. And we will decide who is going to take the decision. Right? Are you with me? Okay, said Arun. Yes, Ma, I think that's nice, said Arun. And so from the next day on, they came home and they would tell her, Ma, this is what we have decided. This is Purnima's idea and this is mine. And so Sushma would flip the coin and say, today we'll go with Purnima. Or the next day she would say, or maybe few days later, she would say, we'll go with Arun. And so days went on. Everything settled down. No more arguments, no more fights. Now Sushma could sit outside without a worry. Days, weeks, months, 2-3 years went by. 2 little children came into the house. After a few years, Sushma was happy that things had settled down so beautifully. One day, Arun and Purnima were sitting down, looking at each other. It was a week after Sushma's funeral, and everything was sorted out. The only thing left was finally they had a chance to look at that coin. Here, you do it, said Arun, giving it to her. No, Arun, you do it. Now it had come to a situation where each of them argued that the other should take the decision. Finally, Purnima opened the box. She took out the coin. It's heads, she said. And when she turned over the coin, it was heads too. A minting error. Thank you for listening.
There's a lesson there, I think.
Yeah.
Now, Renu, is that a story you learned or did you create that
I
story?
wrote it. I wrote it.
You wrote that. That's really amazing. Huh.
Thank you.
There's a lot of wisdom there in submitting yourself to, a higher authority or whatever. I mean, that was really, really beautiful.
Actually, I wrote a lot of stories, Brandon, because I was part of this group called Penmancy on Facebook, and they have this monthly, they have the 2-3 different things where they give you an idea or a word, and then you're supposed to spin a story around that. So one of the things that they had chosen was a coin, and that's when I wrote the story.
And you wrote this story about the coin. It's really helpful to have a prompt like that, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. From just a small object, you're liberated by the constraint of the object, I guess. That's fantastic. Thank you, Renu. That's
You're
a
welcome. Thank you.
and our first set of stories. All right, so we've reached 8 o'clock. We traditionally take a short break, and when we come back, we have a prompt for this month. And we will introduce ourselves and share our responses to the prompt. And this month, the prompt is, what is your favorite outdoor game or activity? I think it's appropriate because we're starting to spend more time outdoors. And of course, this was not my idea, but I thought it was a good prompt. So think about that. And when we come back, we'll be sharing our names, where we're from, and what our favorite outdoor activity is. All right, everyone, I'll see you in 5 minutes. All right, welcome back. The May edition of Do Tell Story Swap, Part 2. And this is where we introduce ourselves. And this month's prompt is your favorite outdoor activity or game or sport? And I will kick things off. My name is Brandon. I live in Santa Rosa. I'm a high school teacher. And I love fly fishing. And the big switch that I'm making is going from the Petaluma and the Napa rivers, which are tidal, so they are brackish water. But I'm switching to ocean fishing on the beaches. I've started casting from the beach, and in just about 6 inches of water, you wouldn't believe what is lurking there. Think of that when you're waiting on Dillon Beach next time. I'm pulling some pretty surprisingly big fish out of there. Oh, and so I am going to pass things on to Beth.
Hi, I'm Beth, and I live in Sebastopol. And I found out that what I really love, of course, I love being outside and hiking, all those good things, but I like being in a kayak. And I especially like being in a 6-person canoe in Hawaii in paddling, but that's a rarity. But kayaking, you just get in the wonderful flow of it, and so many wonderful animals.
I'll finish watching the show and get back to you.
Excuse me,
Thank you.
could everybody mute themselves except for Beth, who's talking, and Brandon, please? Thank you.
I think that wraps it up for me. It's being outside is important. That's the most important part of it.
Great. Well, thank you, Beth. And next up, we have one of our leaders, and this is Meg Brown.
Okay. I'm Meg Brown. I live in Forestville. And, the thing that I like to do outside of getting out just in the garden and outside on just spinning, not playing, but on the patio and just enjoying our beautiful place. I really love to play games with my grandchildren. And so we like to play baseball and soccer and basketball, any kind of thing that, is just fun to goof around. That's one of my favorite things to do in the summertime, especially. And I'm with Beth. I do love to kayak. I don't get to do it as much anymore, but there's just nothing like being in a small boat under your own power, quiet and beautiful. It's a really lovely way to spend at least some time during the summer. And that's my favorite.
Thank you, Meg. And next we have Katie Mangan.
I am Katie Mangan, and I live in Santa Rosa. I think one of my favorite things would be around water or just lying in the hammock and watching the birds
Oh,
and doing nothing.
I love that. Thank you, Katie. And over to our beloved founder.
There we go. Hi, I'm Kenneth Foster. I'm in Ephraim, Utah. And thinking of activities outside, give me a chainsaw, some trees. I would love that. But nowadays that I'm getting older, I'm with Katie. I have a great front porch, and I just love it faces the southwest. And I just love to sit on the porch and watch the sun go down and relax for a little bit. So that's what I like to do in the summer.
That sounds nice, Kenneth. And next on my list is Chester.
Hi, I'm Chester Weems. I live in the middle part of Oklahoma, on the west side of Oklahoma City. Grew up out in Dewey County, out in the western part of the state, which is pretty sparse population. I think we have about 5,000 people in the whole county out there. But when you're a kid out in Dewey County, the first thing you want to do is leave. And so I've lived in Louisiana a little bit, and then here in the Oklahoma City area. In terms of outdoor activities, each one of you reminded me of something, but I've gotten into a little bit of gardening lately, which is kind of new for me, except for the bending over part. I don't do that very well anymore, and the work part. So, but I've got some raised beds now. That makes it a little easier. But I'm a photographer, and I do different kinds of photography, fine art photography, and a little bit of landscape. And within the past week, we back up to a 30-acre creek and old pasture area. We've had 3 deer out there and had a coyote run by, and we have turkeys that actually will come up on our driveway. They'll come up within, sometimes they'll come up within 4 or 5 feet of me. I talk to them, they talk back, and I take their picture. I don't know if you've ever been close to a turkey or not, but turkeys are absolutely beautiful when you get the sun just right. Their feathers are quite iridescent. In fact, they're almost an abstract painting in themselves. So that's one of the things I like to do. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Laura.
Let's see. Well, when I was a child, my favorite game was croquet. I would play with my sisters. We're all really close in age, just 14-month intervals between us. And we were really competitive. And it was the Midwest, and it was back when people didn't have fences between their yards. And we would like knock each other's balls like way, way, way down the block. And, that was like so much summertime fun with croquet. But the thing I like to do most now, which actually goes back to childhood, and that is to walk with my sister Mary Ruth. We started doing it when I was about 5 years old, and we would just like have to get out of the house, have to get away. And the two of us, didn't matter what the weather was, anything, we would just walk and walk and walk and walk. And, we still walk today. We don't walk as far. Sometimes it'll be just like around the block in passing, but it's like really my favorite thing to walk with my sister, Mary Ruth.
Thank you, Laura. And welcome, a big welcome to Linda.
Hello, everyone. So, yeah, my given name is Linda, but after leaving California for 15 years and going through a divorce, I have claimed my current name is Lulu. That was the name that my niece gave me when she couldn't say Auntie Linda a long time ago. So I'm very happy to be back in California. And when I lived in northern Minnesota, I loved going out on my kayak on the lakes of the north. But now that I'm back in California and I sold my kayak, what I like to do is get up early in the morning when the sun is just rising and take a walk in my neighborhood. And I listen to the birds, I greet the sun, I thank Mother Nature. And that gives me so much joy, especially during this time when things are kind of falling apart, a lot of darkness. So being with nature just fills me with so much joy. And yeah, just walking slow. I don't even have to go fast. And frequently I run into neighbors. The neighbors around here are very friendly. And yeah, there's early morning walkers like me. And that's what I like to do. And it's a joy to be a part of this community. At one point when I left California in 93, I moved to East Tennessee, and I went to the National Storytelling Festival for 8 years in a row. So it's lovely to get back into listening to stories and maybe to share a story. Thank you.
I can tell we're going to be hearing one from you. And next up, we have Sharon.
I'm Sharon. I'm in Vaughan, Montana. And as I hear the activities, I think many of them have changed over the years. I used to love croquet. I used to love so many different things. Now what I like is pretty much what some of the others have said. I like to sit without moving on my porch and just soak in the sun and the sound of the neighbor kids playing and the things going on around me, and I don't move a muscle. I guess that's an activity.
Oh, it most definitely is, Sharon.
Mm-hmm.
And we all know what an active observer you are. All right, and next up we have Vicky.
Hi, my name is Vicky, and Vicky Ness. I live in Sebastopol, where the Luther Burbank experimental farm is. And when I was a child, we lived on a dead end out in the country, and we used to play kickball from spring through summer until the fireflies came out. But now that I'm older, Terry and I take the dog once a week. We pick a day and we just take off, and we walk in the redwoods, we walk on the beach, we walk along the river. We just take off for a walk somewhere. And that's my thing to do. So thank you.
I hope to see you at the beach. And next up we have Renu.
Hi everyone, my name is Renu Narayan. I live in Chennai in South India. I love trekking, but don't get a chance much to do that because we need to travel out of Chennai. So what I do every morning is I go for a long walk along the beach, and I carry a lot of dog food, feed lots of dogs on the way. That's my favorite thing to do. Thank you.
And Genevieve. Hello, Genevieve.
Hi, it's good to be here. I came up with a word when I was much younger that describes a lot of what some of you like to do, and I called it pensing, P-E-N-S-I-N-G, which is that sort of just being somewhere, especially outside, and just soaking it in and enjoying it. So a lot of pensing to be done. I'm grateful that my garden, for some reason, maybe because of the way the rains were, my garden has just leafed out, and I had a friend visiting from March, so she came when it was still with very few leaves, and now it's just kind of poof. So there's a lot of pensing to be done. But the thing that came to my mind when you said it, not being very good at sports and so forth, but I thought, Frisbee. I love Frisbee. But you know what? I can't play Frisbee worth a darn. And I have hardly ever played Frisbee. And it's been a long time since the last time of that hardly ever playing Frisbee occurred. But I think maybe I wish that I were a dog, because you can just play Frisbee and chase balls all day long and be patted for it and get treats.
Dogs love Frisbees. You are so right. All right. And coming to us also from tomorrow is Sri. Hi, Sri.
Hello everyone, I'm Shri Karuna from Vishakhapatnam, which is a little about Chennai, where Renu stays in southern part of India. And when I'm hearing, and my chance is a little later in the lineup, so many memories. But one thing didn't emerge till now is my favorite outdoor activity was on the swing. To swing up high in the air, feel the wind on my face and hair, and you know, That is still date my favorite. And if by chance, anytime I go to a park and I find a swing which can fit me and not for kids, I would still like to get up on the swing and swing up high in the air. But otherwise, as a teenager, I loved playing badminton and basketball. And like Renu, I also stay in the coastal city and I like to go on a walk on the beach because um, as Brandon said, it is summer for you, but for us, it is summer throughout the year almost in India. So I like to go on the walk and see the morning sunrise and, wet my feet in the waves that come up and listen to the birds and all that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Sri. And let's see. Next, I have Debbie.
Hello. I've loved all these stories and stories of a special thanks to everyone and the stories of Burbank Garden. Thank you, Ken. I worked there as a gardener when I first moved up here. And I didn't know the things you know about the trees being planted a few blocks away and the walnut. I always liked the English walnut because it was sweet, but it was tricky to get the meat out. It was just wonderful. Thank you. Everyone has brought up great stories. And what I'm doing now is less active. I do my gym, which is not my favorite outdoor, it's an indoor. I never used to do gyms much. I was always a hiker. But now I go to my park, I get a camp chair under my arm, and I get a flask of coffee, and I got my banjo on my back, and I go out and I find a little corner of Sonoma County that's not too far from home where there's a public park, and I go sit. My favorite place is the beach on Monte Rio where I can look out over the Russian River and sit there and practice my chords as best I can out there and try to listen to the river and the sounds, that come back and forth between the music of the instrument and the vibrations of the river. Thank you.
That is really beautiful, Deb. Okay. Walter, are you able to turn your computer camera on?
I am.
Great.
I'm on.
Very good. So let's spotlight you now. There you
My
are.
name is Walter Wilson. I currently live in Sacramento. I grew up in Southern California. I spent my early career surfing. Got my first surfboard when I was 9 years old and sold my last surfboard when I was in my 30s. Brandon, I surf fished all through grade school and high school on the Pacific Ocean. There's nothing like surf fishing, and it was just a true joy. When I moved to Sacramento, I took up kayaking. I currently own 4 kayaks. I can walk out my front door and in 2 blocks, I can be on the American River.
Wow.
I have when I want to kayak now at my age, I have to get my son, who I adore and is wonderful about it, or a friend. I want to go kayaking. We throw my kayak on a car. We drive up the river, wherever I want to go, get out, get in a paddle down the river and come over here to this outlet. I get out my phone. I go, "Hi guys, come pick me up." They come pick me up, and I go home. It's wonderful, and I love doing it. In September, I am going on. See if I can make this right. A tour of the Klamath River Basin. It's going to start up at Klamath Falls and go all the way down to the Pacific Ocean. 5 days. Everybody, the guides are all water resources people, and they have set it up for us to meet the Indian tribes.
Wow.
This is where they just took out the 3 dams on the Klamath River.
Right.
I know about that. So we're going to go through all of that and see the new river from Klamath Falls to the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
It'll be an educational thing. And I got a friend of mine to go with me because of my age. He said, "Can you get somebody to go with you?" Just so I've got a friend going with me. And we are currently reading as much about the Klamath River and the Klamath River Basin and the history of it as we can, because we're the only ones without a master's or a PhD in water technology going on. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it, and I think it's going to be great. And like I said, I have 4 kayaks. Why, I don't know. I do.
Wild one.
It is
Walter,
obligatory for all great adventures to carry storytellers along.
I'm sorry?
It's obligatory for all wonderful adventures to carry some storytellers along.
Yes, well, we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, I'm excited about it.
I am just speechless after that.
Brendan, surf fishing's a blast. I mean, surf fishing is a blast. I haven't done it in, well, since I was probably 18, so
Yeah.
60 years, 50 years. But,
I know what would happen if I tried it.
Sorry.
All right. So that was really fun. I know we have a couple of announcements.
Brandon, is Vina still there?
Ah,
I
fine.
don't see her, but
I don't.
is she gone?
I
Okay.
think so.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'll just
Thank you,
cross her off my
Katie.
list.
I should have checked with you. I know that Vicky at least has an announcement, so I'm gonna let Vicky make her announcement. And I'm looking for Vicky. Where are you? There you are.
Hi there. So I have actually 3 announcements. The first one is genre storytelling is Legends this month. It's coming up on the 21st. And Shilpa, who was here briefly, she will be the guest storyteller. And I will be telling. And anyway, it should be really great. So that's the usual genre, to go to the SAC website and you can get tickets to that. The second thing is that we always offer office hours, Katie and I, and that's the first Tuesday of every month. And I just want to remind you to either, you can put it in the message if you want to me or Katie, or email us and let us know if you'd like a time slot. And we will fit you in for a half an hour time slot to practice your story. And finally, I'm offering a workshop, a 2-hour online workshop in June, uh, exercises for creating your own stories. And it's, anyway, if you're interested in that, it's online Saturday, the 28th. And anyway, drop me a line in the chat or email me. And those are my announcements.
Those are all really wonderful. Thank you, Vicky. And let's see, Katie, do you have an announcement you'd like to make?
I already announced about Elaine. I'm wondering, does Meg want to talk about the Bay Area Storytelling Festival, or would you like to talk about that, Brandon?
Yeah, I can say a few words. So the Bay Area Storytelling Festival is going to be in June in Santa Rosa, and the dates are June 20 and June 21. I'm going to share my screen. And this is the Do Tell Story Swap website. And I hope you all explore this website. There are some really neat things. There's some new things up here. The recording, I know that somebody was asking, we usually post recordings of our most recent swap on this page. And the Catherine Fairley archive is accessible on this page as well by clicking here. The Bay Area Storytelling Festival, June 20 and June 21. You click on this icon and you can see the great tellers that are coming, including Willie Claflin, Dovey Thomason, and Charlotte Blake Alston, as well as Brandon Leake. Brandon Leake just won America's Got Talent in spoken word. Anyway, you can click here and buy tickets for both days or one day. And I believe it's important to know that the early bird special ends in May. And so if you want to get that discounted price, you should definitely buy your tickets before that. The before the end of May. The venue is actually the school where I happen to be a high school teacher, Sonoma Academy, and we have a new state-of-the-art theater with breakout rooms for workshops, and it should be a really nice event. So definitely check out the Do Tell website because there's a lot here in addition to information about the Bay Area Storytelling Festival. All right. Meg, anything else I should run through or do you want to add?
No, the only other thing that I did send out an email on, in case anyone was interested, is that there is an Irish storyteller and singer, and her name is Helena Byrne, and she is going to be in San Francisco this coming weekend, telling her stories and singing songs. And you can find the information, how to get tickets or how to get to her venue, because I believe that it is only in person on the SAC website. So if you're interested in, those Irish stories are wonderful. Then you get music too. It's a double good thing. If you're interested in that, go ahead and check her out because I think she's doing a whole tour of the West Coast or perhaps even the country, and will be very much worthwhile taking a look at her if you can get down to San Francisco.
Thank you, Meg.
Mhm.
Great. Now, Katie, I have that you are listed, as is Genevieve, and then I happen to see that Sri was interested
Yeah.
in telling a story. So would you like to let me know which teller should go next?
Well, it would be between Genevieve and Shri. Who is ready to tell?
I'm fine.
Would you like to tell then, Genevieve?
Sure.
Great. All right, so please welcome to the virtual stage, Genevieve.
Hi. Oh, now that you've spotlighted me, I see all the mess in the house. You'll soon find out why. I haven't been telling stories for a while, and this is just going to be a little extemporaneous story of some recent things that have happened. First of all, let me see if I can put this thing on. Blur my background. There we go. What you see in the background are some little wipes, and that has to do with the story. Edith Wharton, in a poem that I cannot quite trace, said a line that is often quoted. It brings up such a tender feeling and possibly refers to a dog that she got named Foxy when she was 4 years old. And that famous line is, "My little dog, a heartbeat at my feet." I never had a dog. I never wanted a dog. I was a bit afraid of dogs because my mother was afraid of dogs, and that's what happens to children sometimes when mothers don't teach them not to worry about what they worry about. But when my husband proposed the idea that we do get a dog, something that I had been pressing him to do for some time, primarily thinking that he might want to get a second guide dog because he was blind. And when I met him, his first guide dog had died. So I never knew Silas. Anytime I suggested it, Don said, "You know what? It's going to end up being more work for you," because he knew that his own health was going to be failing and anticipated that although most guide dog owners take care of their guide dogs directly, he knew that it would be a shifted burden on me. But one day he surprised me out of the blue, sometime in 2012, and he said, "I think I'll take you up on that." And that is how we got our little dog Chipper. After scouring Pet Finder for any kind of possible Sheltie type dog, we found a Sheltie mix. And Chipper is probably part Sheltie, part Corgi. He is a loving, sweet, polite dog that was described on Pet Finder as a perfect little gentleman. And so he has been. Unlike other dogs, he doesn't charge his food. He doesn't growl. He doesn't nag. He's not skitterish. He will be good with little children and people who are in their 80s and 90s. Another thing that my husband brought to my life was a friend that he had who became a very mutual close friend named Noreen. Some of my storytelling friends have heard of her because she accompanied me on my 3 surgeries when I had a mild case of cancer. And Noreen recently came for another visit. Fortunately, there was no health crisis behind it. And she was delighted not only to see me, as I was delighted to see her, but she and Chipper have an incredible bond. Noreen is the kind of person that is so attuned to the animal world that if we are driving down a street and we come to a pause in traffic, and there's a car next to us, she will roll down her window and start talking. I have often asked her, "Are you talking to the driver or one of the kids in the car?" And she says, "No, I'm talking to the dog." On another occasion, still in the car, she rolled down her window and I saw her say, "Be safe out there, little one." And I asked her who she was talking to. She said, "The little gnat that I just shooed out the window." So this is the kind of care that Chipper gets when he comes. She is the quintessential auntie. And she not only fawns on him, but she has a special sensitivity to what they want and how they're expressing what they need. So the first few weeks that she was here, we enjoyed our normal interactions with Chipper. But one day, he was unable to complete a walk and he just stopped. And I realized that actually there were other times when he had hesitated to continue to walk. And when we took him to the emergency vet, because he seemed to have a particular difficult time with his legs, the vet diagnosed that it was some kind of just problem with his joints. We did a follow-up with this regular vet, and she said, "Oh, that vet did not palpate his abdomen. It's very obvious that he has a distended belly here. Let me take an x-ray, and maybe I'll do an ultrasound." And when she came back, she said, "Chipper has a tumor on his spleen this big." That changed our trip. That changed our visit. She said, "Take him home, give him whatever he wants. Look for the following signs. This is something that's not operable, and the prognosis is very poor. It's a matter of months, most likely. We could operate, but chances are that it was malignant and it would come back in 2 or 3 months." So we brought him home, showered love on him, and one day, he had a very, very, very especially bad day. His breathing was 100 breaths per minute instead of somewhere between 15 and 30. And that evening, I played some soft music, and we thought we had gotten to the point where the doctor said we should call her and arrange to have him put down. So we spent the night just reflecting on him, and we lit a candle, and I brought a picture of my husband, Don. And we just did this little love vigil all night long. Not all night long, but until we went to bed. Carried him gently up the stairs, brought him back down the next day. We were able to get an appointment to see the doctor at 1:30. And as we were preparing to pick him up, to carry him into the car, out the door, he took it on himself to pounce and bounce and just shimmy his way, wagging his tail, to the door. He'd had some kind of a miracle temporary recovery. When we got to the vet, she looked at him and said, He's not ready. So the past few weeks, we've been nursing him along. We had another problem where he stopped eating. So we went to another vet that was an emergency, that was available. Our vet got COVID. So we went to another vet, and that vet put him on prednisone. Prednisone restored his appetite and restored a little bit of his shimmy. But it's been an up and down thing, an up and down thing. And you realize just how precious these wonderful four-legged beings are in our life, how much they give us, how effortlessly. Today was a bittersweet day for me because it was the day that Noreen went back to her home after 7 weeks here. And as we left with teary eyes, she said goodbye to Chipper. And then she opened the door, and Chipper went to the door, wagging his tail, wanting to go with us to the airporter. So we picked him up, put him in the car. She cried to say goodbye at the airporter. But then he had another episode like the one that we originally had when we went to the vet, who told us that he had had possibly a little bleeding of his splenic tumor. So that's how you find me today, which is why I was in and out. And I just wanted to share this story with you. One thing that has happened with Noreen's beautiful visit is that I have recovered my desire to tell stories. And more than anything, especially since so many of us are so deeply impacted by the disastrous administrative actions, we are very fortunate that we still have sources of steady love and light. And now I say, my little dog, such heartbreak at my feet.
I just lost my dog to cancer of the spleen. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, Brandon. Oh, I hope that didn't hurt.
No, it's good. It helps work through it. So thank you for that story.
Thank you.
And we've seen Chipper on Zoom before, and we all adore him.
He's a good one.
Yeah.
Thank you. My love to you.
Thank you. All right. Sri, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. So recently on Monday, that is just yesterday, 12th of May, as the full moon night or the Buddha Purnima, what we call, where the Buddha has been enlightened on this particular day. And I don't know how many of you know about Buddha, but Buddhism is the fourth
Ray, can I
practice
stop you for
religion.
just a second? I'm having trouble seeing your video for some reason. I don't know if others, I just see a black screen. Can you make sure your video camera is on?
It is on. Let me switch off and switch on again. Is it
There.
on now?
Sorry,
Okay.
it might have been just me. I'm sorry. And
No, that's okay.
I'm sorry to have interrupted you.
So this is one of the stories about Buddha. So Buddha was going from one place to another, teaching his teachings to everybody regarding impermanence, regarding compassion, and regarding letting go of desires and all that. And in one of such meetings with his disciples at Jetavana, which is in Uttar Pradesh in India right now, his disciple named Subhuti came in front of Buddha and asked, "Oh, compassionate one, I want to take your teachings and teach them and spread them far and wide. Please give me permission to do so." Buddha smiled at him and said, "Subhuti, I understand that you want to take my teachings far and wide. but it is not easy to be a teacher. How much ever good words you say, even with a lot of goodness in them, there will be certainly people who will criticize you. And Subhuti said, "It is okay, Tathagata. I don't mind if people criticize me. At least I will have the satisfaction that I'm trying to spread your teachings and their goodness to everyone." Buddha smiled and he was silent. And within no time, the other disciples came and they were talking to Buddha about his discourses and monastery and temples and other things. And Buddha got very busy. After 3 hours, Buddha had his afternoon meal and he went inside to rest. After many hours, Buddha emerged from his rest and he saw it was evening time and Subhuti was still there waiting for Buddha. He asked Subhuti, "Subhuti, why are you here?" "Tathagata, I wanted your complete permission." And Buddha said, "But I thought you got my answer in my silence." Subhuti said, "Oh, wise one, who am I to understand your silence? I can't. Please, please be open and, give me your complete permission." And Buddha said, "What if people don't like what you teach and they criticize you?" And Subhuti smiled and said, "It is okay, my lord. I will accept that. And if they criticize me, I will think at least they are not, uh, physically abusing me." And Buddha said, "What if they do?" "Oh, if they physically abuse me, I will think at least I tried my best taking your teachings to them and they are not pinning me down and stabbing me." And then Buddha smiled and said, "And what if they do?" And Subhuti said, "Oh, Tathagata, the second best thing that can happen to me is to die trying to spread your teachings to far and wide." Of course, the first best thing would be to, die at your feet, but the second best thing would be to die in trying to spread your teachings to one and all, because everybody needs to know how wonderful it is to follow your teachings and live a life of purpose. Then Buddha smiled and said, "Subhuti, you're ready to go and spread my teachings to everyone. I was since morning, I was testing your patience, your commitment, your intention, and everything. And you have surpassed the intention that you want to, even you are okay to give up your life. And that strong is your intention. And your patience of waiting since morning till you get my acceptance, my blessings are with you." So this story teaches us the power of intention and patience in our spiritual journey. When we are strong in our intention, then the blessings of and it in whatever religion it is and whatever God we follow, we are on our righteous path towards our spiritual journey. That's the meaning of the story that I interpreted, and I hope you all liked it. Thank you.
Oh, that was really beautiful, Sri. Do you tell a lot of stories about the Buddha?
And not regularly, Brandon, but because it was a special, Buddha Purnima signifies Buddha's, when it was a special edition on that. As I said, I put down in the chat that every full moon night, I hold a telling space for adults, virtual. Vicky has been there earlier, and yeah, Renu has also been there and all that. So throughout the year, I try to get heartwarming stories, whether personal or mythological or fictional, just heartwarming stories, thoughtful stories that, make us smile or, smile through our tears. Or, I don't give any specification to most of the storytellers, whatever they like to bring to that space. And touch wood, it's been 3 years, and all the time, wonderful stories are coming to this space, thanks to divine blessings. But only 3 times in a year. That is, one is the Buddha Purnima. I try to make it specially Buddha stories and Zen stories and Buddha's teachings. And another one is in the month of March, where we celebrate International Women's Day. Then I try to ask the tellers to bring in stories about women in their life or women who inspired or women-centric stories, And I title it, because the Festival of Colors is also in March, I title it Colors of Women. Yeah. So, and another time is in the month of August, when we have this full moon. The same day we celebrate Raksha Bandhan, where brothers and sisters bond together, where sisters tie on their brother's wrist a thread, which is sacred, called as like, you protect me, that's why I'm tying this, and my blessings are also there with you. This thread will protect you. So then I try to bring in stories about brothers and sisters. The rest of all the full moon nights, the other 9 full moon nights are generic stories. Yeah.
That sounds like a wonderful event. And I saw you put your information in the chat. So
Yes, I have shared my email ID. Any one of you would like to share a story, which would be morning time for you in the USA. I don't know. I mean, California is in the Western zone. I just put the CST time there, you know. And there is also, after a few months, there is like a time correction happens
yeah,
for winter. Yeah. So
we really have to do
accordingly.
something with that. Well, thank you so much, Sri. And next up, and our last teller is our beloved Katie Mangan.
Thank you, Brandon. And it's just wonderful stories. And here's a story for you all to finish the evening. It's about the spring equinox. And it's a story about a man called Eduardo. He lives in a world that's parallel to our world, but he's not of our world. And his world is beautiful, mysterious, and very magical. He lives in the country in an old rambling house that's been in his grandmother's family for generations. Now, his grandmother, Eleanor, she was called a wise woman. You and I would call her a shaman. And she was a gifted and renowned healer. She used plants and herbs. And she wanted to have a daughter so she could pass on her vast amount of knowledge. But she had 6 sons. And so she resigned herself to waiting to have some granddaughters, which she did. But none of them, she felt, were suitable. But it was her second-born grandson, Eduardo, who showed great interest in the plants and in the healing. And so, against all the rules of the women's world of medicines and magic, she began to feed him this knowledge. And he was hungry for it. And even before he was a teenager, he had more knowledge than some of the women in the community. When they found out, they were furious, and they made life so difficult for him that he ran away from home. And he was away for about 10 years. But when he returned with even more knowledge. And now we catch up with Eduardo. He is in his late 30s. He's married the love of his life, Rachel, and they have 3 children, and they are awaiting the birth of the 4th child. Eduardo is walking through the countryside, down all these beautiful country lanes, to the cottage of the midwife. Her name's Phillida. And she is a family friend. And in fact, Phillida was a student of Eleanor's. And Phillida was actually present at Eduardo's birth. Oh, there you are, Eduardo, lad. Oh, it's so good to see you. Now, tell me, how's Rachel? Well, Eduardo put her mind at ease that Rachel was doing just fine and the baby wasn't expected for at least another week. Oh, that's great. We've got lots of time, lots of time. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to take you a longer way. I have a surprise to show you. Right. And I took the liberty of putting together a wee picnic for us to share. And so they left the cottage and they started down the lane. And they'd walked a few miles when they came around a corner. And there before them was this apple tree, this wild apple tree. And it was full of blossoms. And this was what she wanted to show Eduardo. And he just stood there. He was just so surprised and just loved it. And so they decided they would find a place out of the wind, but in the sun. It didn't have much warm because it was at the spring equinox. It was mid-March. And that's where they sat and they had their picnic. Now, Phillida had baked bread that morning and she had churned butter the day before and she had cheese. And so she had made this beautiful picnic with this freshly baked bread and the butter and the cheese. And she'd also found some very tender, bright green dandelion leaves. It was delicious. And they sat and they talked about Eduardo's children. The eldest, Raven, she was about 7. She had long dark hair like her mother, and she was very creative, very energetic. And then next was Leo. He was about 18 months younger than Raven. And he was charming, but a bit bossy. But he never got to boss Raven around. She would never allow it. And then the younger one, Martine, he was quite different. He was quiet, reserved, and very musical. He would listen to the wind and to the sound of the raindrops. And he found the rhythms and the songs and the tunes in that. Oh, Eduardo, I've just worked it out. This baby we're waiting for, it was conceived on the summer solstice. Oh, Eduardo, heat and passion. I wonder what this little one will be like. Well, when they got back to Eduardo's home, the children were delighted to see Phillida. And she spent quite a bit of time talking with them and playing. But then she excused herself and went to be with Rachel. The afternoon wound down, as did the evening. And then finally, the house was quiet and peaceful. And it was the night before the spring equinox. And it was during the night that Rachel went into labor. And it was after a few hours that Phillida turned to Eduardo and whispered, Eduardo, lad, I can sense your grandmother, Eleanor, here. Do you sense her? And he just smiled because he always felt Eleanor was with him. But that night, he knew she was there because he could smell her fragrance. It was roses, always roses. And he could hear the silver bracelets on her arm jingle. It was no longer night, but it was not quite day. It was on the threshold that the baby was born. And when Phillida saw the baby, she gasped in surprise. And she told Eduardo later it was because the baby looked exactly like he had looked when he was born, the same dark hair and the same features. But this time, the baby was a girl. And as Eduardo handed the baby to Rachel, he said, Rachel, let's name her Eleanor Rose, after my grandmother, but let's call her Rose. And Rachel smiled and said, Rose. It wasn't until later in the afternoon that Eduardo could find time to slip away from the house. He had a very important message to deliver. He went directly to the walled garden, and he walked through the garden and he got to the apple orchard. And then beyond the apple orchard, at the back wall, was a line of beehives. And as Eduardo approached the beehives, he could sense the excitement and he could hear the bees. And they flew towards him and they landed on his arms, on his back, even on his head. And he stood by the hives and he told them the story of Rose's birth. And it was in their humming and their buzzing that he heard the song that they were singing to him. And the song said that it was Rose, Rose, his second-born daughter. It was Rose. She was the daughter that Eleanor had been longing for. Blessings and abundance and healing to you all.
Oh, Katie, that was beautiful. You've woven a whole world around as Eduardo. I think, I guess I've always felt like you're a healer as well, or some might say a shaman. Wow, what great stories today. So we have heard from so many people tonight. I think the entire group is going to end up being spotlit. Sri, do you want to turn your camera on? And Walter, Laura. Oh, I can't even add any more to this. I'm going to remove myself at least. So at least I can add Sri, or Laura belongs down there too. Look at all the tellers we've had. And Laura, you're one of them up there. What a great evening. And next month, remember that we have a very special edition of Do Tell, and that is devoted to our co-founder, Elaine Stanley. I hope we can all be there. And there will be an email describing the way that event is going to go and inviting people to tell stories about Elaine. I hope I have that right, but you'll be hearing from Meg Brown. And in the meantime, I wish you all well. I like how Katie says blessings and abundance. That seems like the best wish we could possibly have for one another. So until June, good night, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.